My name is Stig Andersen. I'm a composer and sound designer, primarily working in video games. My background is very diverse. I've been working with theatre, performance, installation, electroacoustic composition, acousmatic music. The sound that I'm creating is very much something, again, between music and sound design. It doesn't have like melodies and like perceivable rhythms. It's much more like organic, more like a sound collage. My process for composing in general is very experimental. I actually don't like to get too many like references when I work with developers. Like I think for Wolfenstein, the brief was like Marshes of the Machines. That was the only kind of thing I got. I very much prefer that because then I can go out and explore, record sounds, gather sounds, and then I start to process it, and then I build it. Films are linear, so you always know what's going to happen. So you can very much like structure both sound effects and music towards a specific point. If you want to have like a jump scare, you can kind of lower the levels, which is not really possible in games because you don't know when the player kind of hits the trigger. Is he active? Is he hiding? You have to be able to accommodate for all kind of different types of gameplay. You know, how can the music transition in a musical way so you don't get like crossfades and all that stuff. Digitally, I've been working a lot with something called FFT, a fast Fourier transform. It's almost like a vocoder, so you take like one sound and then you process it with another. So you have like the sound of an orchestra, and then you can have a sound of a factory, and then you can kind of create something that's in the middle. And that's one thing I like very much, the kind of the ambiguity. So the sound is not telling you what it is. It kind of lets the player, the audience decide. I think my favorite piece of equipment is probably my reel-to-reel recorder. Because I'm working with these kind of very abstract digital processes, they get this kind of byproducts. You can kind of hear some kind of smearing sounds, and it sounds a bit like artificial in a way. But when I do some kind of post-processing in analog, it's almost like, you know, this sound was really recorded. It just sounds more real. For inside, I worked with a human skull as a way to process sound. I mounted like an audio transducer on the skull, and the transducer is like a speaker but without the membrane, so instead it's the skull vibrating. And then I attached contact microphones on the skull, and then I could play sound through the skull. So I had the idea of, you know, hearing the sound from within your own head. Yeah, that was a really interesting job in terms of it's really very much like my niche, something that's in between music and sound design. There's like a composer attached to the project, and it's not me, but I'm doing this kind of, we call it like ambient music design for some underwater sequences and underwater in general. This kind of space between music and sound design is definitely relevant to film as well. But I think it has like a specific relevance in games. One of my favorite game scores is for a game called Journey. And what's interesting about that is that it's very fluent. It seems super organic. I'm just trying, you know, to figure out, you know, what causes these transitions. And I never really kind of found out. Which is of course a good thing. I think in general I'm trying to chase those challenging experiences, because I think as soon as I get comfortable in a specific area, I start to repeat myself. So I think the challenging part is always like finding some new objects, equipment, entirely new approaches, and maybe sometimes like a new media. So I'm also kind of looking for those challenges.